It was still the deep, blue-black dark of pre-dawn when the thunderous, desperate pounding ripped me from a shallow sleep. I blinked, disoriented. The digital red glow of the alarm clock reading 5:02 a.m. No one, absolutely no one, in the quiet, manicured cul-de-sac of the new Sterling district ever knocked at that hour. Not a delivery, not a solicitor, only an emergency, a bad one. My heart immediately began a heavy, uneven drumbeat against my ribs. I pulled on the nearest piece of clothing, an oversized collegiate sweatshirt, and padded silently down the hardwood hallway toward the entryway. Every instinct screamed for caution. I paused, my palm flat against the cool wood of the door, listening to the hurried, uneven breathing on the other side. When I finally pulled the door inward, my next-door neighbor, Elias Thorne, stood framed in the dim porch light. Elias was an enigma. He was quiet, rigidly polite, and had moved into the neighborhood exactly 1 year and 3 days ago. I knew him only by his solitary habits, the precise time he left for work, the single brand of coffee grounds he bought, the fact that he kept his lawn impossibly perfect. He was a ghost in our social ecosystem, but the man standing before me now was not the Elias Thorne I knew. His face was stark white, devoid of all color, and streaked with a cold sweat. His breath hitched in his throat as if he had run a marathon. He didn't look terrified. He looked like a man who had seen something terrible and barely escaped its gravity. "Don't go to work today," he managed, his voice a low, raw whisper that barely carried over the nascent sound of the morning. "Stay home. Just trust me." I stared at him, my mind scrambling to reconcile the urgent terror in his eyes with the rigid, emotionless man I usually saw. "Elias, what are you talking about?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Did something happen? A fire? Did someone break in?" He shook his head, a single, violent motion. His gaze, however, was sharp, darting over my shoulder into the empty house and then scanning the silent street. The pink streak of sunrise was just beginning to paint the horizon, and the world seemed absurdly peaceful, making his desperation feel utterly surreal. "I can't explain right now. There isn't time," he insisted, his voice dropping to a near inaudible rumble. "Just promise me, Kaelen, you do not leave this house today, not for any reason. Do you understand?" I took a slow, measured breath, the cold morning air stinging my throat. "You're scaring me, Elias. I'm a data architect at Iridian Financial Group. I have an 8:00 a.m. compliance meeting I can't miss. Tell me why." He hesitated, his jaw flexing tight. Then his eyes locked onto mine, holding a deep, ancient warning. "You'll understand by noon. And if you're not here, the only way you'll understand is too late." Before I could demand more, before the confusion could solidify into action, he stepped back, giving one final, paranoid glance down the empty street. He turned, moved with the sudden, controlled speed of a trained professional, and vanished back into the shadows of his own house. He never looked back. I stood there, the open door letting the cold air in, my hand clenched on the knob. A deeply rational part of me, the one that structured large financial data sets and predicted market trends, tried to dismiss it. Paranoia, a mental break. Elias had always been strange, but another part, the subterranean intuition that had never steered me wrong, commanded me to listen. And there was one more, far more compelling reason I couldn't shrug this off. 3 months ago, I lost my father. His death was abrupt, listed officially as a massive stroke, but in the weeks leading up to it, he had been consumed by a dark, private urgency. He kept trying to talk to me about something vital, something he needed to show me. When I pressed him, he would only say, "It's about our family, Kaelen. It's time you knew the truth." Then, before we ever had that conversation, he was gone. Since then, the predictable, structured life I had built had been systematically dismantled by strangeness. A dark, unmarked electric vehicle parked near my driveway for hours, with tinted windows that refused to reflect the sun. My secure work laptop freezing every time I typed specific regulatory terms. My phone ringing constantly from blocked numbers, where only the sound of static breathing met my ear. My younger sister, Lena, who is currently working overseas in environmental law, called last month, asking in a tightly controlled voice if I had noticed any new faces in the area. I am Kaelen Rourke, 33 years old, a data architect who manages sensitive compliance logs for a multi-billion-dollar firm. Someone who prided herself on being invisible and dependable. Until today. The choice I made wasn't born of fear, but of cold, hard logic. If Elias Thorne was wrong, I would simply take an unauthorized personal day, a risk I could easily manage. If he was right, I was saving my life without even understanding the threat. I texted my manager, inventing a vague but urgent family emergency. Then I locked the door and waited. The hours that followed were an eternity. The clock in the kitchen, usually a benign presence, became a hyper-audible countdown timer. Every noise became an alarm. The hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the aging floorboards, the wind shifting outside, all sounded like someone whispering just behind the walls. I didn't sit. I paced. I went to the window, pulled the blinds back a millimeter, and scanned the street. It was infuriatingly normal. Neighbors' cars pulling out. A distant garbage truck rumbling, no black SUVs, no figures lurking. At 7:45 a.m., I received a text from my colleague, demanding to know where I was, mentioning the 8 a.m. meeting. I felt a surge of professional guilt, quickly overridden by the memory of Elias's face, that visceral, unfeigned terror. 9:30 a.m., a near miss. A delivery truck pulled up to my driveway, the driver struggling with a large, non-essential package, a random subscription box. The impulse to open the door, accept the package, and just talk to a normal human being was overwhelming. Look how normal everything is, my rational mind insisted. I stayed frozen behind the reinforced door, watching the driver eventually leave a note and walk away. The small, mundane act of the delivery felt like a terrifying invasion. By 11 a.m., doubt had metastasized. I started feeling foolish, paranoid. Maybe Elias was the crisis, not the prophet. I almost reached for my keys, ready to drive to the office, apologize profusely, and regain control of my structured life. Then, at 11:32 a.m., my secure mobile phone rang. The screen displayed unknown number. My hand shook as I answered, expecting silence or a spam message. Instead, a calm, authoritative male voice spoke. "This is Detective Vance with the New Sterling Police Department. I am attempting to locate Ms. Kaelen Rourke. Are you aware of a critical incident that occurred at the Iridian Financial Group building this morning?" The air was sucked out of the room. My breath caught, burning in my lungs. What incident? The detective exhaled slowly, the professional calm in his voice cracking just slightly. There was a severe, targeted attack at the corporate headquarters. Several employees and security personnel were injured. We have reason to believe you were present. My entire body went instantly cold, a shock that traveled down to my fingertips. That's impossible, Detective. I wasn't there. I've been home all morning. There was a long silence, filled only by the crackle of the phone line. Then Detective Vance's voice came back, lower, harder. We have time-stamped footage of your personal electric vehicle arriving at the parking garage at 8:02 a.m. Your key card, Rourke, 7 Gamma, was used to enter the building. Security reports place you last seen on the 3rd floor, the primary incident site, minutes before the attack commenced. My knees buckled. I gripped the edge of the kitchen table, the polished granite brutally cold beneath my fingers. Someone hadn't just used my identity. Someone had meticulously staged my arrival. Someone wanted me to be there. And now they wanted the world to believe I had been. I am telling you, I did not go in, I whispered, the words catching. Someone cloned my credentials. They used my car. Ms. Rourke, the detective continued, his tone shifting into formal interrogation mode. Can anyone verify your location for the past 6 hours? I looked around the empty, silent living room. The furniture, the books, the framed photograph of my father, all witness to my isolation. Accusatory silence. No, I whispered. I live alone. The officer's voice hardened, now purely formal. At approximately 11:47 a.m., an emergency alert was triggered on the third floor of the building. A coordinated, high-level destructive attack took place. You are currently reported as missing from the scene. We are required to locate you for your safety and for preliminary questioning. Questioning. Why me? Evidence was recovered at the scene, he stated flatly. Items belonging to you were found directly near the point of incident. My mind raced. Elias's warning, the black vehicle, the emails. Someone had been planning this for months. They needed a villain, a patsy. I'm telling you, I am being framed, I said, trying to push past the panic. I didn't go. Did the footage show the driver's face when the vehicle entered? The detective paused, a telling beat of hesitation. The footage is corrupted. We see the license plate clear as day, but the driver's profile is obscured by a technical error. Your plates are visible, Ms. Rourke. Whoever did this hadn't just accessed my identity. They had orchestrated a digital blind spot. They wanted the vehicle to be visible, not the person inside. Before I could ask another question, the detective delivered the final blow. Units will be arriving at your address shortly for your protection. Please do not leave the premises. The call ended. I didn't drop the phone. I placed it carefully on the table as if it were a fragile bomb. My instincts, sharpened by Elias's earlier warning, went into overdrive. If I was being impersonated, if evidence was being planted, and if a powerful entity had orchestrated a catastrophic attack, then the police weren't coming for my safety. They were coming for my capture. They were coming to secure the fall guy. I scrambled, moving like a shadow through my own house. I slammed the blinds shut on every window, locking the heavy deadbolts. My breathing was ragged and shallow. I replayed every oddity of the past few weeks, the anonymous emails asking me to confirm my schedule, the almost undetectable sense that my drawers had been rifled through, the brief flash of a camera lens from the dark electric vehicle down the street. It wasn't paranoia, it was meticulously coordinated preparation. I had maybe 5 minutes. A controlled, heavy knock vibrated through the front door. Not frantic, like a panicked neighbor. Not official, like an arrest. It was deliberate, a signal. I held my breath and stayed absolutely silent. Another knock, followed by a low, steady voice. Kaelen, it's Elias. Open the door. We need to move. Now. My chest tightened. I moved slowly toward the door, but did not touch the knob. How did you know the police would call? I demanded, my voice muffled through the solid wood. His voice came back, urgent and devoid of emotion. Because they're not calling to help you. They're coming to secure you for federal custody. You were never meant to be home this morning. You were supposed to be eliminated or found dead at the scene. My head spun with dizzying, cold realization. What are you talking about? Eliminate who? Why? They staged the incident to neutralize Key. Personnel inside that building, Elias explained. But your presence was the central element. You were meant to be the disposable scapegoat who takes the fall for the entire operation. They need you alive just long enough to confess. A crushing weight settled on me. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted me erased, my life rewritten as the genesis of a tragedy. Whatever was supposed to happen at noon wasn't about the Iridian building. It was about destroying my life as a legal entity. I reached for the door handle. I didn't fully trust Elias, but I trusted the fear that had finally dissipated and been replaced by sharp clarity. I trusted the siren call of approaching doom even less. I slowly cracked the door. Elias's eyes were instantly locked onto mine, sharp and watchful, meticulously scanning the shadows behind me and the empty space across the street, confirming we were still alone. Without a request for permission, he stepped inside and firmly closed the door behind him. Why me, Elias? What the hell is going on? My arms were crossed tightly, trying to stop the tremors in my hands. He didn't answer right away. He moved to the kitchen window and confirmed the blinds were shut. He turned back, lowering his voice until it was nearly silent. I didn't move here by accident, Kaelen. I moved here to watch over you. Your father asked me to. The words struck me like a physical blow. I recoiled a step. My father? No. He was a corporate accountant, a normal man. He never... Elias cut me off, his voice flat with absolute certainty. Alec Rourke never worked a day in finance. That was his cover. He spent nearly 20 years embedded in a covert federal oversight investigation. And you were the reason for his entire existence. My mouth went dry. What does that mean? What am I? Elias reached inside his heavy, dark jacket, a jacket that now looked like professional tactical gear, not a neighbor's coat, and pulled out a small, heavy black envelope, sealed with a brittle piece of red wax. Your father knew this day was coming. He prepared for it. He left this for you. My fingers shook violently as I took the envelope, breaking the seal. Inside was a single, folded sheet of crisp, dated paper. The handwriting was my father's familiar, precise script. Alyssa, no, Kaelen. If you are reading this, then what I feared has come to pass. You are not in danger because of anything you did or anything you were planning to do. You are in danger because of who you are. There is far more to your identity than you know. Elias will explain the rest. Trust him completely, as you once trusted me. Do not, under any circumstance, surrender yourself to the authorities. If they take you into custody, you will disappear, and the truth will die with you. Dad. My knees felt liquid. All those years, every time he said, "There are things you're better off not knowing yet," I thought he was being an overly dramatic father. They weren't cliches, they were warnings from a man fighting a ghost war. Elias met my gaze, holding steady. They're not just framing you as a domestic threat, they're reclaiming you. Reclaiming, I repeated, the word sounding alien in my own mouth. You were never just a civilian, Kaelen, Elias stated. Your birth was not a coincidence. Your identity was constructed, managed, and hidden. Your father uncovered a classified biogenetic program, one that was tied to prominent families, the deepest political and financial bloodlines in the country. The program was called the Chimera Project. He took another step closer, his focus intense. When your father refused to cooperate and tried to pull you out, he became a critical liability. His death was not natural. He was poisoned with a customized neurotoxin developed by the very people running the project. His death was the opening move. You were meant to be the closing move, eliminated next, but they found a better use for you. To use me as what? I demanded, my breath coming in short bursts. As the origin of their narrative, Elias said, his voice hard as steel. A false flag event, a manufactured tragedy with you as the villain. Declare you a terrorist, and they seize every asset, every file, every document connected to your father's investigation. They erase the truth he died trying to protect. He reached into his jacket again, pulling out a small metallic keycard with a severe red emblem I didn't recognize. This is access to a secure storage vault your father maintained. It contains encrypted files that name every individual, every family, every politician behind the Chimera Project. If you don't reach that vault before they reach you, everything your father died for will be buried forever. And I stared at the keycard, then back at the letter. My entire life, the predictability, the structure, the dull job, all of it had been an elaborate shell. I was never invisible. I was never replaceable. I was the last piece of a puzzle someone powerful desperately needed to eliminate. Suddenly, the unmistakable, distant wail of sirens began to echo across the district, growing louder with terrifying speed. Elias looked toward the front window, his face grim. They're here, less than 2 minutes. But his eyes held no fear. And in that moment, neither did mine. Fear had been replaced by a singular, burning clarity. Doubt was gone. I folded my father's letter, placed the metallic keycard securely in the zipper pocket of my sweatshirt, and met Elias's gaze. "Show me where we need to go," I said. He nodded once, a brief, affirming motion, and with that, I crossed the invisible line between the life I knew and the one I was born to face. We moved fast and low, a practiced, lethal efficiency I hadn't known Elias possessed, or that I could mirror. He led me not to the front door, but to the back utility room, where a heavy-duty storage closet hid a narrow, soundproofed entry into his garage. The police units are coming in. From the north, Elias explained, his voice terse as he input a sequence into his garage keypad. But the people hunting you, they're coming from every direction. Unmarked vehicles. They'll prioritize taking you alive, but they won't hesitate to neutralize. The heavy garage doors shuttered open. Elias didn't head for his perfect manicured street. He backed his own vehicle, a black, armored utility SUV that looked nothing like a neighbor's car, onto a hidden gravel service road that ran along the boundary of the properties, covered by dense overgrowth. We barely cleared the dense juniper trees before the first 3 unmarked black sedans, identical to the one that had been watching my house, screeched around the corner onto my street. The sirens had cut off abruptly. They didn't need the sound of law enforcement anymore. They were coming as recovery, not rescue. "Get down," Elias ordered as he floored the gas. The SUV shot forward, the tires spitting gravel. Through the rear window, I saw 2 men in dark tactical gear step out of the first sedan. One immediately raised a radio to his mouth, his expression chillingly cold, like a man retrieving stolen property, not a human being. "They've sighted us," Elias confirmed, weaving the heavy SUV into the main highway traffic. "They've activated the net." The chase was not a spectacle. It was a clinical, terrifying game of maneuvers. The black cars were everywhere, merging onto the highway ahead of us, pacing us in the adjacent lanes, forcing us into bottlenecks. Elias navigated the massive vehicle with the precision of a stunt driver, slipping through gaps, using commercial trucks as moving shields. "They're not trying to stop us yet," Elias narrated, his eyes glued to the rear view. "They're trying to hurt us, to force us into a kill zone." We were moving into the industrial sprawl of the new Sterling district, a labyrinth of concrete and steel. Suddenly, a blue sedan, a legitimate police vehicle, slammed on its brakes 10 yards ahead of us, attempting to box us in against the guardrail. Elias cursed under his breath. "That's the local PD. They're part of the frame-up. They think you're armed and dangerous." Instead of braking, Elias cut the wheel hard, taking the SUV off-road, over the curb, and onto a dusty, abandoned access road that ran beneath the concrete skeleton of a half-finished bridge project. The impact jarred my teeth, but the vehicle didn't slow. "Hold on!" We barreled beneath the bridge, gaining crucial seconds as the pursuing black sedans were forced to make the abrupt turn. I took a shaky breath, the adrenaline a bitter metallic taste in my mouth. "We're leading them right to the vault, aren't we? If they catch us, they get me, and they get the evidence." "We're not going directly to the vault," Elias said, a faint, almost invisible smile touching the corner of his mouth. "Your father ensured we had a diversion point. 10 minutes, then we lose the herd." The diversion was a meticulously planned disaster. Elias drove the SUV directly toward a massive, unused maintenance shed, seemingly leading us into a dead end. Just as the pursuit vehicles closed in, sirens faintly wailing in the distance, Elias slammed the brakes, and the SUV came to a halt in the deep shadow of the shed. "Get out! Run!" He tossed me a small, flat remote. "Press this when you hear the impact. Run north. Don't look back." I scrambled out, hitting the ground and sprinting into the dense scrubland bordering the shed. I didn't understand the plan, but I trusted the urgency in his command. I ran maybe 50 yards before I heard the roar of an engine. I turned, hiding behind a thick concrete drainage pipe. Elias was back in the SUV, not running, but driving the vehicle straight toward a stack of derelict, fuel-filled barrels chained together against the shed wall. Before I could scream a warning, Elias jumped from the vehicle, rolling expertly into the dirt just as the armored SUV, on autopilot, slammed into the barrels. The explosion was deafening. A massive ball of orange flame and black smoke erupted, engulfing the maintenance shed and creating a blinding curtain of heat and light. The pursuing sedans, unable to stop, were immediately caught in the chaos and forced to brake hard, their drivers momentarily blinded and confused. As the roar settled into the sound of burning wreckage, Elias was already running toward me, covered in dust and grime. "That bought us exactly 3 minutes," he said, pulling me up. "They'll assume we were neutralized in the blast. We move now, and we do not stop." We moved into the wilderness, toward a deep, winding network of old logging trails. The pursuit team would be sorting through the wreckage, convinced their problem had been incinerated. For the next 20 minutes, we moved at a brutal, relentless pace through the dense forest, Elias leading, maintaining a silent, focused rhythm that demanded all my attention. My lungs burned and my muscles screamed, but the adrenaline overrode the pain. Finally, we reached a secluded, overgrown clearing where a single, innocuous-looking utility truck was parked. Elias opened the back, revealing an interior outfitted with communications equipment, specialized power cells, and medical supplies. "This is the secondary vehicle," he explained, starting the engine. "We continue the journey from here. The vault is still an hour away." As the truck moved onto a quiet, unpaved road, Elias finally spoke, his tone softer, now that the immediate threat was momentarily neutralized. "There's something you need to see now, Kaelen. Your father didn't just ask me to watch over you. He asked me to ensure you understood the cost of his sacrifice." He reached beneath the dashboard and pulled out a rugged military-grade tablet. A file was open on the screen, labeled in bold red letters, Rourke Kaelen. Subject 7B. I scrolled down, my pulse accelerating into a frantic rhythm. Designation, genomic asset, high priority, project origin, the Chimera Project, gene expression, chart, blood markers, not found in ordinary humans. Note, subject exhibits complete immunity to multiple known viral strains, H5N1 and MERS, Delta 24 variants. Potential regenerative blood properties. Subject approved for Phase 2 integration, active deployment, upon reaching somatic maturity, age 33. Phase 2, regenerative. Immune to what? The scientific jargon hit me harder than any bullet. Elias kept his eyes fixed on the isolated road ahead, his face illuminated by the passing streaks of moonlight filtering through the trees. 20 years ago, your father, Kaelen Rourke, was part of a federal oversight committee investigating medical malpractice and unauthorized human experimentation, Elias began, his voice taking on the measured pace of a historian. What he discovered was not malpractice. It was a secret government-backed biogenetics program, the Chimera Project. "They weren't trying to cure common diseases, Kaelen," he explained. "They were trying to engineer an elite class of human beings, people with specific, unparalleled immune advantages, citizens who could survive any outbreak, any chemical exposure, any future biological or conventional warfare. A new evolutionary step, controlled entirely by the world's most powerful financial and political syndicates." I stared at the screen, the scrolling text, charts, data points, genetic sequences, flickering across my face. The truth settled on me, heavy and cold as ash. "My father was involved in creating this?" I asked, the words hollow. "No," Elias countered firmly. "He stumbled across it. He was initially investigating strange spending patterns within a government health grant. He discovered medical inconsistencies in your early childhood records, unauthorized blood draws, tissue samples, and coded entries about your development. He realized you were being studied, managed, and controlled without his knowledge or consent. He realized his child was Subject 7B. He paused, letting the magnitude of the words sink in. "He tried to pull you from the program, but that was never an option. You weren't a research patient. You were a patented asset." My father, the man I remembered as quiet and content, had spent 2 decades living a calculated, dangerous lie, only to protect me from the truth of my own existence. Kaelen Rourke leaked the existence of the Chimera Project to a handful of trusted contacts on the oversight board. The board ordered the project shut down. But the people at the top, the financiers, the politicians, the scientists who saw themselves as gods, they didn't end it. They wiped the investigation clean, destroying every paper trail and neutralizing everyone who knew about it. Everyone, including your father. "They made it look like a stroke," I whispered, closing my eyes. "But he was poisoned." "He was poisoned with a neurotoxin they developed in their labs," Elias confirmed. His death was a message to anyone else who considered interfering, but he had already set plans in motion to protect his most vital asset, you, Kaelen, and the truth you carried. Elias explained that the Chimera Project had initially planned to retrieve me around my 33rd birthday. The age they determined represented peak somatic maturity for Phase 2 integration. But something forced their hand, he said. Your routine blood test last month, the one you thought was for insurance renewal, was actually analyzed by their systems. It triggered a high-level alert about the stability of your unique markers. They needed you immediately. That's why they accelerated the plan and staged the incident at Eridian today. If you had gone, you would either be dead or permanently disappeared into their private facilities, dead or erased. And now? I asked, gripping the tablet. Now they will frame you publicly, Elias said. Declare you a national threat, initiating asset recovery protocol. They need the world to believe you're dangerous, so no one questions what they do with you once they have you. But why frame me? Why not just take me quietly? Because they want control over the narrative, Elias answered. If you vanish quietly, people, like your sister, like a few lingering contacts your father made, might ask questions. If you are publicly branded a violent financial terrorist who orchestrated an attack on her own company, then all those questions stop. Your father's life work and your existence become a footnote in a massive federal cover-up. The utility truck turned off the main road and onto a hidden, muddy path leading deep into a heavily forested reserve. After 10 brutal minutes, the trees parted, revealing a massive, overgrown hill. Hidden beneath its summit was the entrance to what looked like a derelict, concrete bunker, massive and silent. This is it, Elias said, parking the truck a safe distance away. The primary vault. Your father built this as a fail-safe, a data archive, and a final meeting place. We stepped out. The air was colder here, heavily scented with pine and damp earth. Elias approached the rusted, heavy bunker door, inputting a specific decades-old mechanical sequence. With a low, grinding groan, the thick steel door pulled open, releasing a cold, untouched blast of subterranean air. Once you walk inside, there is no going back, Kaelen, Elias said, turning to face me. You will know everything. Your father died to protect the truth about what you are. Once you know it, they will never stop hunting you. The fight starts here. I've been hunted my whole life without knowing why, I replied, feeling a strange, hard calm settle over me. It's time I found out what they're so desperate to control. He nodded, and I stepped across the threshold. The door sealed shut behind us with a deep, echoing metallic thud, the sound of the world being irrevocably cut off. The air inside was stale but pristine, carrying a faint scent of concrete and old paper. Elias led me through a long, fluorescent-lit corridor lined with steel safety doors. The deeper we went, the stronger a strange sensation grew in my chest. Recognition. My body felt an ancient familiarity with this place, even if my mind had never been here. We stopped before a formidable circular vault door. Engraved into the steel was a precise, stylized crest, an eagle holding a helix, the Rourke family crest. My father had once told me it belonged to distant ancestors, but now I understood. It wasn't heritage, it was a project designation. Elias motioned to a panel on the wall. Your DNA is the only key. Your father designed it to recognize his specific bloodline, the markers of Subject 7B. You are the last one with the uncompromised genetic signature. I hesitated, then pressed my palm flat against the scanner. A pulse of sterile blue light ran along my skin. The vault emitted a soft, high-pitched chime of successful authentication, and the massive door slowly, ponderously, began to rotate open. Cold air spilled out, smelling of memory, old paper, and a strange, comforting sense of home. The circular room inside was pristine. The walls were lined with shelves holding hundreds of black, sealed magnetic boxes, each labeled with coded numbers and dates spanning 2 decades. At the very center, on a clear glass pedestal, sealed inside a protective casing, was a single, leather-bound journal. My father's handwritten research journal. My hands trembling, I lifted the casing and opened the worn cover to a bookmarked page. A letter, addressed to me, was tucked inside. My daughter, Kaelen. If you are reading this, the lies surrounding your life have finally been stripped away. But what I need you to know above all else is this: you were never an accident. You were never property. They did not create you. You are the first successful proof that human immunity and regenerative capacity can evolve naturally. You were born with what the Chimera Project has spent decades and billions of dollars trying to manufacture. The project's goal was control. Your existence proves control is impossible. It is not what was done to you that makes you powerful. It is what you already are. You are the future they fear because you are the future they cannot own. Your loving, proud father. Tears blurred the ink. My father didn't just die to protect me. He died to protect the hope I represented. Not a weapon, but a profound evolutionary anomaly. On the next page of the journal were his final, explicit instructions. There is one final decision, and it is yours alone. At the far end of this vault lies the master control terminal. It is connected to the global network, ready for activation. One command, acquisition protocol, will give them what they've always wanted: your compliance and the deletion of the master files. This is surrender, but it buys your life. The second command, revelation protocol, will trigger the immediate public release of every classified document, every name, and every genetic file tied to the Chimera Project to global media servers and independent oversight organizations. Once you choose this, the world will be changed forever, and you will become the singular target of the most powerful people on Earth. I looked at Elias. He stood silently by the entrance, a watchful, steady presence. Your father trusted you to decide, he stated simply, not as a subject, but as a human being who knows the truth. I walked toward the control terminal. It was a minimalist interface of black glass and steel. 2 primary buttons glowed softly beneath protective casings. Acquisition protocol, surrender, safety. Revelation protocol, exposure, war. If I chose the first, I might live, but the truth and my father's memory would be buried forever under my assumed guilt. If I chose the second, I would ignite a global war against an enemy that had already killed to hide their secret. I reached out and placed my hand over the second button. I did not hesitate. I pressed the revelation protocol. A low, vibrating hum filled the chamber, followed by a sudden burst of activity on the screen. A countdown timer appeared. 180 seconds. Data began flooding onto secure, preset channels designed by my father. Names, financial trails, genetic research, the identity of every single individual involved in the Chimera Project, all streaming to global media outlets, encrypted, traceable, and impossible to retract. Elias exhaled, a deep, satisfied sound. It's done. You just changed the world's definition of power. Before the countdown reached the final 60 seconds, the entire bunker began to shake violently. Red emergency lights flashed overhead. They found us, Elias roared over the blaring alarm. They anticipated the revelation protocol and initiated a full, localized shutdown and recovery effort. Our time is up. But I was no longer afraid. For the first time, I wasn't hiding behind the flimsy structure of my old life. I was standing in the blinding light of the truth. We have to go. Elias grabbed my arm. We raced back down the corridor, the air now thick with the metallic smell of ozone and failing systems. As we burst out of the bunker door and into the cold night air, the sight that greeted us was overwhelming. The sky was crisscrossed with the powerful, sweeping beams of searchlights. The rhythmic thud, thud, thud of military-grade helicopters echoed off the dense canopy of trees. Black-clad figures, far more than just police, were already descending the hill toward the clearing, moving with a disciplined, ruthless efficiency. But as I looked at them, I no longer saw hunters. I saw the first wave of a dying lie. I looked at Elias, then back at the approaching enemy. My father's last words echoed in my mind, ringing with the authority of prophecy. You were not born to be controlled. You were born to reveal what control really is. We're not running anymore, I said, a faint smile touching my lips. We're leading the charge. Elias looked at me, understanding dawning in his eyes. He didn't argue. He simply drew a sidearm from his jacket, something I hadn't noticed before, and fired a single, strategic shot into the main power terminal of the utility truck, causing a shower of sparks and smoke. "Diversion 2, he confirmed. "Follow me. The reserve has an old fire access road that connects to the abandoned rail line 10 miles east. We move, Kaelen. We move, and we don't look back until the world catches up." As we plunged back into the dark undergrowth, the helicopters thundered above, their searchlights sweeping the ground just feet from where we hid. I was no longer just surviving. I was becoming what my father always knew I was, the beginning of something entirely new, carrying a truth that was about to shatter the foundation of global power. The world was about to learn about the Chimera Project, and I, Kaelen Rourke, Subject 7B, was going to ensure they never forgot. The data had already hit the independent networks. By the time we reached the abandoned rail line, the first hesitant reports were being broadcast on secure global news channels. Elias carried a small, military-grade communication device, its screen showing a live feed of a skeptical but panicked news anchor discussing the unsubstantiated data leak targeting major political and corporate figures in the new Sterling district. "It's working," Elias murmured, his face tight with satisfaction. "The digital fire is lit. We just need to stay ahead of the ground fire." We followed the rail line for miles, the steel tracks cold and slick with dew. The constant noise of the helicopters eventually receded, replaced by the deep, resonant silence of the vast countryside. As the true, undeniable light of dawn finally broke, not the false pink streak of 5 a.m., but the full, golden reality of morning, we found a hidden bunker, another small, pre-supplied way station set up by my father years ago. I sank onto a metal cot, exhausted but completely alert. I pulled out my father's journal and opened it to the very first page, a page I hadn't looked at before. It wasn't a log. It was a prediction. The day Kaelen makes her decision, the world will see her as a threat, but she will be the proof that the human spirit, even when altered, can retain its ethical core. They will hunt her, but they will never truly find her, because they are only looking for a weapon. They will never look for a leader. They will never look for hope. Her natural immunity is not the key. The key is her choice. And once the truth is out, the war for human autonomy begins. I closed the journal, placing the metallic keycard on top of it. My old life, Kaelen the data architect, the dependable neighbor, the quiet daughter, was gone, incinerated in the flames of Elias's diversion. What remained was Subject 7B, the woman who had just declared war on a global syndicate. "What's next?" I asked Elias, the question no longer laced with fear, but with strategic determination. Elias, who was meticulously cleaning his weapon, looked up. "We wait for the world to confirm your father's files. We find your sister, Lena, and ensure she's safe. Then we find the remaining people on the oversight committee who haven't been neutralized. We build an alliance, Kaelen." He put his weapon away. "And then we fight back." The clock read 7:35 a.m. The sun was fully risen. The story of the Chimera Project was trending globally, an unverified, explosive rumor that was already sending shockwaves through the foundations of global politics. I smiled, a genuine, fearless smile. "Good," I said. "Let them look for a weapon. I'm ready to lead." Note on length. This draft has been significantly expanded to meet your request, detailing the tension, the chase, and the backstory of the Chimera Project. The original content serves as a skeleton, but the action and exposition have been padded out to be approximately 5,500 words. I hope this revised and expanded version meets your vision. I chose Kaelen Rourke as the new protagonist and renamed the project to the Chimera Project to enhance the thriller tone. Her job was changed to data architect to fit the themes of information control and security. What do you think of Kaelen's first steps as a leader? Would you like to revise any part of her escape, or perhaps dive deeper into the specific content of the files she just released?